Good morning. My name is Dr. Tom Rivera. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies Emeritus. Emeritus means that I retired a couple of years ago. Today is Tuesday, November the 5th, 2013, and we're located at the File Library, room 4PL 4005. And with us this morning is the director, the dean of the library, Mr. Cesar Caballeros. And Cesar, before I start the interview, would you tell us a little bit of what we're doing as far as this South Colton project is concerned? It's the oral history of South Colton.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, the Colton Oral History Project is a project that we have begun in order to document the rich history and importance of Colton to the history of this area. And we intend to interview residents as well as leaders in the community to document that history.
Thank you, Cesar. And it is an important project. We've been working on it for several months now, and it's finally come to
A good start.
a good start. And why don't we get started this morning? This morning we have Mr. and Mrs. Ayala, Sal Ayala and his wife Francis Ayala, both residents of Colton. And Sal has been a resident of Colton for many years because he was born and raised in Colton. So Sal, welcome this morning. And Francis, welcome this morning.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us this morning. Why don't we get started, Sal? First of all, tell me, were you born and raised in Colton?
Yes.
When? Cuando?
February 17, 1925.
Ya estás viejito.
Yes. 88.
88 years
I
old.
can't switch him.
Un poquito nada más.
Poquito. Now, what about mom and dad? When did your mom and dad come
Okay.
to Colton?
My father was born in Guanajuato, Mexico. My mother was born in Jalisco, Mexico. According to the map, it's about 300 miles apart, but they met in Colton. It took him 3,500 miles to meet. I don't know why, I don't know how they met in, because my dad was very secretive. He never wanted to share anything about his own family.
And when did he come to Colton?
I figured that he came to Colton around 1905.
1905?
Yeah,
So-
he was 15 years old, and I suppose that he walked across the border because then it was an open border. I think he said that they only paid 25 cents to cross the border, and I think they used to humiliate
Uh-huh.
him, and you can go back, come back again, another 25 cents. So it was no immigration.
It was easy
Open
then.
weather.
It was easy. Now, why did he come to Colton?
Well, he was an orphan. His mother died, and his father married another lady. So the lady was very cruel to him. So he just left. And I don't know how he got to El Paso. I don't know. Maybe he walked, I don't know what kind of transportation, but he got to El Paso. He walked across. Somehow, he ended up in Crestmore, which is Ruby Doe area, Riverside.
In Crestmore, he worked for the cement plant? Did he work for the cement plant in Crestmore?
He worked in a Crestmore cement plant. Now, I probably labor up on the breaking
Uh-huh.
rock up in the hill.
Uh-huh.
And in the meantime, he worked with his future father-in-law. And I imagine that's the way that he got acquainted. Because I guess they felt sorry for him because he was an orphan, he didn't know. So I don't know, somebody felt sorry for him and he was living somewhere.
So that's how he met your mom then?
I imagine that he met my mom because he knew my grandfather, which was my mom's father.
Uh-huh.
And then somehow they ended up in Colton. I would say about 1909, 1912.
1909, 1912?
1912, yes.
So your family has been in Colton a long, long time.
Yes, yes.
A long, long time.
We were 10 brothers and sisters, and 2 died in infancy. The first one was born in 1917, a boy. And the second was in 1920. The third was a little girl, Matilda, 1923. And then myself, 1925. Then I had another girl, Francis, 1921. And then the first boy that died. And then Josefina, I'm losing time because I should have put it.
No, don't worry about
You
it.
you have a sharp memory.
He does, he does.
And
No,
then-
It's all the
and then,
time.
Another
It's always
boy
reading.
that died in infancy.
Like my
And then
father-in-law.
the last ones were David and Daniel. So
No.
there were 8 survivors.
all 8 altogether. And where did you live in Colton?
We live in a 1-room
But where,
and
where in Colton?
Maple Street, that's south next to the Santa Fe Railroad tracks. And we lived there until I got married.
Okay.
I lived with my parents until I got married.
Yeah, Maple Street is just south of
South is
7th Street or so.
yeah, south
Yeah.
of the railroad, south of the what is it?
The Santa Fe?
Southern Pacific
The Santa Fe Railroad
tracks.
Now,
And
where did you go to school?
I went to school in Garfield, and kindergarten in 1931. So I 1931 to the 5th grade, and then I did 1 year at Wilson School. Somehow they got the 5th grade Mexican American kids, and they got him to integrated him in the Lincoln School, the old Lincoln School on
Uh-huh.
Lacadena Drive.
Where the city hall is now.
And-
Where the city hall is now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you went to Wilson, and you, after Wilson, you graduated and went to Colton High School. You went to Colton High School.
Yes.
Okay.
I went up to the 3rd junior, and then I went into the service. So I didn't graduate then.
Oh,
But I got my diploma. When I came back, I put in for it, and I took the exams,
Took his
and
test.
I got it.
Took that test I'd taken, then he got his diploma.
so you were in the Navy.
Yes,
You were in the Navy before you graduated from high school?
yes. Yeah, I went to
Okay.
service. That was during War II.
World War II.
Yeah.
And how long were you in the service?
Well, totally it's 4 years and 3 months. I was through the Second World War, and then I came out, and 90 days later, I went back and I re-enlisted again. So I put in 22 months
Extra.
afterwards in a peace Navy.
Wow, that's a long time. And now, Francis, where were your parents from?
My parents were from Mexico, from a little town called Mezquital del Oro, Zacatecas. It's a mining area, mining town. That's where I was born too. And they came back, and my father had been here before. But he went back to Mexico, married my mother, and then came to it was a ranch, the Diamond Bar in Bracan, and then they went back to Mexico, and the brother and I were born there. And they immigrated, we all immigrated back in 1926. I was just a few months old. I was born in 1925, May 11, 1925. And lived in Fontana. And after several years that my father died, later on my mother remarried to a man called Salvador Robles. And we lived Beaumont, Anaheim. And from Anaheim we came to Colton in 1942, November 17th, 1942. because of the war, they wanted him, he was a section foreman for Southern Pacific, to live in Colton because of the main line, and he had a lot more responsibility.
This is your father, was that your stepfather?
My stepfather. Yes, my father died and was buried in the mission of St. Gabriel. So that's how I happened to come here to Colton. And, but I was actually raised, like I said, in Fontana.
Uh-huh.
In a segregated school, like usual.
Uh-huh.
And when I came here to Colton, I went to register my brothers in school. And I came to Lincoln School because a section happened to be this side of the railroad where Mount Vernon came to an end. And Mr. Bailey, who was the principal, meets me at the hallway, says, "What are you doing here? You don't belong here." I said, "I came to register my brothers in school." "Well, you don't belong here. Go to South Colton, go over there." And I was dumbfounded. I'm happy because we had moved. And I registered them at Wilson. Not Wilson, it was Garfield.
Uh-huh.
And two of the brothers were already in junior high.
And Francis, what year was that when you tried to register them at Lincoln? That was
It
the
was-
north side of Colton.
That was in November '42 when I first.
42?
Mhm.
So they said, you better go to Wilson, or Garfield, and you went to Garfield.
Yes.
And registered your two brothers.
Yeah, so they went to Garfield, and of course my sister and I were in high school. My stepsister and I, so we went into high school. That's where
Well,
I met Sal.
before we get into that, tell me about that wonderful love story that, people say that there's love at first sight. There's love at first sight.
She doesn't believe me.
And this what happened at Colton High School. Sal, tell us what happened when you saw Francis.
Okay, it was junior year, and the first period was study hall up in the second floor in the main building.
The old
And,
building.
At the end of the study period, I was coming down, and I went to the front, and I was going to the algebra room, and I seen these two girls that park in the curb in a 1941 Pontiac, white, and they were walking, and Francis had a white blouse and a brown skirt and white majorette boots, and then, boy, I tell you, it was about 50 feet or so. I said, somehow something clicked in here, that girl's different. So I just left, went to class. And then later on I used to see her in the school. And I never talked to her, but I managed to write two notes to her. She never answered.
Francis, you never
I didn't know
answered.
who he was.
So the last day of that year, we had the annuals. So I got brave enough, so I went over there and asked her if she would sign it for me.
And the
she
rest
did
is
that
history.
thing. So that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you went into service.
Yes.
And did you keep in touch or qué pasó?
I wrote to her, I would write to her, and she never answered. I would write to her,
That's bad.
and she would never answer. And so I came back in August of '45, just before the war was over. And so I went home, and I knew I wanted to see her, but I don't know, because her mother was very strict. No dating, that's it. And it happened she had a girlfriend in high school that had lived about four doors from where we lived. So she drove up to Tony's house, that's a girl, and she said, "Francis, do you know that Salvador is here from the service?" "Oh, no. Well, let's go say hi to him." So I don't know what, so they drove, I wasn't there. So they went to my house, and then Tony got off and went to talk to her mom. And did she come down? Did she come out?
Your mother?
My mom?
No.
Well, anyway, they left, and when I came home, they told me, Francis Morrow was over here. So I tried more to see if I could finally got him down.
He was persistent, wasn't he?
Yes, very
I mean,
persistent.
he
very
wasn't going to
persistent.
give
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So
I have a question. I have a question about your time in the service. Well, in the Navy, during the war years, did you see some action?
Did you see action during the war?
Yes, our ship, the first invasion, we took Marines from Camp Pendleton. And our ship was the largest landing ship at that time. And we carried Marines. There was about 5,000 Marines in our ship, fully packed. We invaded the Marshall Islands. That was February 1, 1944.
Marshall
And,
Islands.
you know, we were at war, and it was like a dream, you know, like a nightmare. I didn't know what was happening. There was all kinds of guns firing, and then, so anyway, we unloaded the Marines, and they landed, and of course, you know, the big ship was over there, lobbing shells to the island. They did it in the morning, about 5 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock, 5 hours without stopping. Bang, 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 bang. The whole fleet was there. It was about 200 ships, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, landing craft, everything. But you had to do your job. You just do your job and don't mind anything else. So everybody was doing their job.
what was your job, Sal?
I was in a little boat with 5 sailors. There was 2 on each, the bow and the stern, and the helmsman and the engineer. And of course, they had 30 millimeter guns on each side. I was in the well deck we had a 30-ton tank with 5 Marines in there. And so we unloaded, and then we started going around like that, going around, a whole bunch of them going around there. When they gave us the signal, okay, go on. Now everybody started going. And there we are, you know. And you see those, it looked like firecrackers, but they were shooting at us. Just, what is the thing doing? So they're shooting at you. Like, here you are.
You were in a landing craft. You must have been in a landing craft.
So
Whether-
they tell the Marines, okay, as soon as you hit the beach, the ramp in front is going to go down,
Yeah.
the tank is going to go up.
Amphibian crafts.
Uh-huh.
Were there a lot of Mexicanos on your boat?
There was, I think there was 6 Mexicanos out of 400. 400. There's 6 Mexicanos. And I kept in touch with two of them still. One of them lives in Fort Worth, Texas. The other lives in San Jacinto, but they used to be from Arizona. But we go to reunions every 2 years. But the first one took 53 years to go.
Really?
We were all men when we met.
Right.
Consequently, I got 100% disability hearing because of these 5 guys that wrote letters verifying that indeed I was in a 40 millimeter gun tub as a second loader. I used to get the clips and head it out to the first loader, and he would drop them in the street. And we did that in Okinawa and all of it. All the other than it.
Sal, out of Colton, out of the city of Colton, we had approximately 397 people, young men that fought in World War II. Did you ever join any of the posts like Fidel Hernandez posts? I don't know what the number is, but were you part of that group that got together afterwards?
The American Legion?
Yes, the American Legion.
When you worked to get it, the Post Hernandez, you worked to get it started?
The American Legion post in North Colton, 155, was in First World War, and one of the gentlemen contacted one of the fellows in South Colton if they would be interested in starting a post. Well, it was dormant. They couldn't get the necessary people to join. You got to have a certain amount 10 members or so, they couldn't get it. So I heard about it. So I contacted this gentleman. I said, I hear that you have papers that you want to start a post here. And he says, well, I've been trying to get the guys and I can't do it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. And says, well, would you mind if I try to get the people? And he was kind of a change. He says, well, you can try it if you want to, you know. I thought that I wasn't going to do it, you know. And at that time, I wasn't working. I was getting I was getting some money. I forget what it was, but it wasn't the 20-30. They gave you $20 a week for 52 weeks, 52.20. I didn't apply for that, but anyway, I started. So I bought big cardboards and crayons and everything else. At the time I was going to Valley College. I was trying to do a lot of things at the same time. So anyway, I bought those things and I started bringing them veterans' attention. We're trying to organize a American Legion post in South Colton. So-and-so date, please attend. So I went to the merchants bench in South Colton. I went to Cervantes, I went to Navarro, I went to the little street out in South Colton, 5 stores. I said, would you mind you put this thing in the window? I said, go ahead. And so I called, I went to the American Legion 150th. I said, I don't have anywhere to meet. Well, you can meet here. So they gave me for one night, they gave me the hall to meet. And surprisingly, there was quite a bit of people there, and I was really surprised. But the thing is, they didn't have any money. They didn't want to quit drinking their beer at the end of the day. So I said, you know what? If 15 guys fill up, you give me $250, I'll put $250 to make it $5. You can just give me $250. I didn't have any money, so I had to borrow somewhere to cover the things. Luckily, I think all of them except 2 or 3 didn't pay me back, but that's okay.
So what was
We
the name
got
of your
the
post?
50.
Was it Fidel Hernandez, the post?
Mhm.
What was the post? What was the name of the post?
Fidel Hernandez was the first Mexican-American from South Colton to get killed in the Second World War from Colton.
Right.
So we named him to.
Named it after him.
You're responsible for Fidel Hernandez post then?
Well,
Yes, yes.
unofficially, I guess, but nobody knows about that.
You know, Sal, Francis, I've been trying to find out about the post, the Fidel Hernandez post, and I couldn't get any information, so
He just told you.
I know. I finally got it here at the interview.
Let me tell you something, and I think we all know this. There's something about us that keeps us from doing that. I've been going to reunions. I go to reunions. My own reunion in Wilson, I go there, and they won't talk to me. I've gone to Cage Park, and I've seen all these people that went to school with me in Wilson and Garfield, and I had to get up and say, I'm Sal, I went to school with you. Yeah, I know. And so finally I thought, you know what, I don't know. After 50 years, I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, Sal, I'm delighted that you started the post, the Fidel Hernandez post, one of the first veterans from Colton that got killed in World War II. That's great. Now tell me, how was it growing up in a segregated community? How was growing up in a segregated community in Colton? Colton was segregated.
How was it? Was that a difference? How they didn't like the Mexican people in Colton? How was it for you? How was it when it was segregated? When you were growing up, you came to the show. You better get home before it started.
The class discrimination.
Yes.
It was understood. It wasn't anything in writing, but every day after 9 o'clock, no Mexican American kids would be north of the railroad tracks.
9 p.m.?
9 o'clock, you go back. The chief of police, Chief Hobbs, I was in my bike, and I was working at the baggage room in the Southern Pacific. I was going back. He was in a police car, and he was the chief there. And he stopped me. What are you doing? He says, I'm going home. Well, you know, it's after 9 o'clock. You shouldn't have been over there. He says, I'm working over there at the package house. Okay, well, get back over there.
Ah. And what other incidents did you experience, Sal? What other incidents of discrimination did you experience growing up in South Colton?
Well, mostly, to me, it was the attitude that hurt me. It was the attitude that hurt me. I know that it was there, but it was the way, the body language that's the one that hurt me more, you know. And so when I came back from the war, I says, you know what? This is the United States of America, and I was born here, and I deserve every right that this country gives, and nobody's going to do it to me anymore. I remember the salesman, the Anglo salesman that used to go to South Colton, and used to knock on the door. My mom used to open the door. My dad was working. We were small. Those guys would open up, go inside, and sit down in there when they were selling their wares. And there was no communication. And I say, what's this? Come from work. What's this guy doing here? And you know, well, he came in. He just came in. And so, if whatever he was selling, they gave him 50 cents or whatever, and they lived. That's the thing that hurt me. So every time I see a salesman, it reminds me of that. See?
Yeah. What about going to the theater, the show, the New Colton or the Hub
theater
Theater?
was segregated. The ones on the left was the Mexican Americans or Mexicans, and there was just one section. 3/4 of it was the Anglos, even though it was empty, because during the Depression, nobody had any money. Even the Anglos didn't have any money, some of them. So they had a whole bunch of, they had cushioned seats. Ours was hard seat, and the owner was a Jewish guy, Mr. Myers.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
So that was discrimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about other forms of discrimination, Sal? How about in school? I know that we were in the Mexican school in the Mexican part of town. How was any discrimination in our school, Garfield or Wilson?
You see the books at the beginning of the semester, beginning of the school year. The books were old books. Everyone said, "Wow, we get new books," but every year over there, new books every year over there. I guess their books.
Rejects, you
Dr.
got the
South Colton.
rejects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is services to South Colton. I know Maple Street was a dirt road back then. I know O Street, where I live, was a dirt road.
Oh yes, it was paved.
Yeah.
Maple Street, Walnut Street.
And you paid for,
The majority were dirt.
Right,
Dirt. No
right.
sewers. No sewers.
but you paid for them. My mother-in-law was charged for sewer, and she was not connected to the sewer.
Mm.
Yeah, no sewers. But when I came back, I went to the city, and I said, my parents have been there since 1906. They've been in city Texas, county Texas, state Texas, since 1906. We don't have the sewers. We don't have the curbs. We don't have any paving. Well, we
Or
don't have any
street
money.
lights. We did not have street lights either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So I went to the county, and I saw the sanitation officer was a doctor. I forget his name. I think Dr. Kosan. And I said, I want to see the sanitation doctor from the county. So he came. He came to the counter and says, sir, my name is so-and-so, and I live in South Colton. And I went to the city, and I tried to get a petition for the city to put some sewers and fix up the place, and they told me they didn't have any money. But every house has a hole in the ground for toilet facilities. Well, don't you think that water down there is beating all that stuff? So what are you gonna do? They don't have any money. So he said,
So
well,
that's-
okay, what's
yeah.
your name? And I guess he called Colton, because about 3 or 4 months later, they started putting the sewers.
Sal, you're quite a guy.
That was in 19, when did I get over? 1946, 46, 1948.
They shouldn't have sent you to the war. They should have kept you home. Yeah. So
Just simple things like that.
very, very, very basic services that the city should provide. What about schooling, Sal? What about schooling? Any problems
Well-
with schools?
To me, something happened to me in the 6th grade. When the 5th grade got transferred to Lincoln, they had us segregated the second half of the 5th grade. But the next year, they said, boys and girls, Mrs. Snyder, boys and girls, next year, the 6th grade, you're gonna be in 2 6th grade classes. So you're gonna be with English speaking students. And that was a shock to me. That was a shock to me.
Why?
I feel intimidated because of my accent. And besides that, this is a secret. I stutter. And I don't know if you're stutterers here, but a stutterer, when you go before people like this, my heart starts pounding and starts sweating there.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Hanfield was my teacher, and she really gave me the screws. Because my name is Ayala, I was, Sally Oak was the first one, Salvador Ayala was the second one. So every time that she wanted somebody to get up and say something, Salvador, will you still there? And here I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it. Here I am sweating, isn't it?
Oh.
And she enjoyed. Later on, I found out she enjoyed that. So I was tortured for that whole 6th grade.
Well,
Yeah, 6th grade.
let me get this straight. At 5th grade, they took the kids from Garfield,
No, yeah, Garfield, yeah.
from Garfield to Lincoln
To
Yes.
Lincoln School
for that 1 year.
in the mid
You kept them
1935.
together. The first year, that class was together. The following year,
The
they
separate-
integrated them to the other classes.
And now I think, in their mind, they were trying to integrate. In their mind, they were trying to integrate to see what I never had a legal opinion of that because, you know, who cares? But I thought it was an experiment that they wanted to do,
Mhm.
and that was it. But I told my girl, and you know, my oldest girl is a teacher now, and yeah, the other one went to UCLA, but you know, she got married, and now I think she's in Seattle right now. With she has employment by the Bainbridge Jeweler, and their headquarters in Seattle. So she's over there in a meeting. But anyway, I tell her, this is what happened to me. And at first I said, I can't believe a teacher would do that. Says, well, they did it because they did it to me. And I can tell, and I can swear in the Bible what
Mhm.
happened to me. And so did these kids that were there. Sally Oak, one of the Hobbs, that was a later principal in one of the schools in Colton. He was there. McIntosh, one of the Wallace McIntosh, the guy from
Okay.
high school was there. So they know. They know what happened. So that's what happened.
What, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The reason I'm doing that because I've gone to stutterers. I joined a stutterers association. It's a national thing. And
And he's at ease
you
with it.
you face your devils. You face your devils. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. No matter how much it costs you, but it cost me a lot.
Talking about devils, you left the service. What year did you leave the service? 45, 46?
Well, I registered in January 22nd, 1948.
Okay, 48. Now, Sal, how did you get the job with the post office?
I was living in East Los Angeles. I told Lily I was living in East Los Angeles at that time with my brother. I was staying with my brother. I was working in the LA County Hospital at that time. I was in the communicable disease unit. And I used to go to the post office and mail letters, and then a Mexican American working there in East Los Angeles station with a white shirt and a tie.
Mhm.
And I thought, I'd like to do that, but I didn't know how hard it was in Colton to try to even ask to get a job. Just, oh no. Well, do you have an application? No, we don't have an application anyway.
Oh, you went to Colton Post Office and asked for an application?
Yeah, I knocked on the door in Colton.
Uh-huh.
And so that Cliff Ham, so the politician, I'd like to have an application to find employment in the post office department then. So we don't have any applications. Anyway, we don't have any openings. So Francis was working at a beauty shop, the Arcade Building in Colton.
Yes, I remember that,
And
yeah.
she knew the wife,
The wife and
an
his
employee
mother.
there.
I know his wife and his mother. I used to do their hair.
Okay.
So he said, I'll ask my wife to give you an application. So he got an application to her. So I filled it out. And I went to San Bernardino, pulled it in, and I went to San Francisco. And then I was on the register. I bypassed them. So I took the examination and I passed it. And then it showed preference. The post office that were open says, I want Colton. And when I got it, they didn't know how I got in. And for 1 year, you're temporary. They can lay you off anytime. They tried every which way to fire me. They gave me the worst jobs. I was working inside. They gave me the worst jobs. And they said, just, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna quit. And you tried and I
But
didn't
then,
quit.
let me tell you, Tom, when they call him in eventually, when they call him in Colton, Cliff Ham was still the postmaster. And he said, well, you'll have to carry mail. I said, no, Cliff, he's not gonna carry mail. And he says, what do you mean? That's his job. I said, no, he's too small to be carrying mail, those big leather bags. I said, he's not gonna carry mail, he's gonna work inside. He looked at me and I said, that's right, he's gonna work inside. There's an opening. And so he always teased me, he's not gonna work outside. Well, every now and then when we're short-handed, he did go out. Sure enough, by the time he came back, he had purple marks or his skin had broken from carrying those big bags. But he always teased me, he's not gonna work outside. I said, that's right, he's not.
So you bypassed the process
Yeah.
and got in through, not going through the Colton office. They assign you to Colton, and then you're on probation for 1 year, and they try and do everything they can to
Yeah.
fire you.
Yeah.
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 But you said, no, aquí me voy a quedar, I'm staying here. I'm staying here.
And it ended up for how many
See,
years?
in the post office, I don't know if you know, but inside the post office, they got all kinds of, talking about an NSA now. The post office had it then, I still have it. They had glass things and there's inspector, you don't know when the inspector's gonna be there watching you everywhere. Because they do steal money, people do steal money, we're human beings. And so, they tried every which way to leave something there so you could try to get it or whatever you do.
They
Or,
set you up. They try
Yeah,
to set
set
him
you
up,
up.
yeah, yeah. How long?
Because you're having thousands of dollars every day, So, but
And how long did you work for the post office?
I worked 33 and a half years.
33 and a half years?
Yeah.
And Francis, you said you worked too. Where did you,
I worked in the beauty shop, but before he gets off of that, the post office, the last time when he retired, talking of discrimination, there was a gentleman that was in the service, got out, he got off working for the post office. He made his life miserable, that I thought he was gonna have a nervous breakdown. At one time, it got so bad, he went to the doctor, and he just had to get out because he was pushing and pushing and pushing, you know. He was one of those, I don't know if he was from the south or where in the heck he was, but he was a miserable man, to the point that he made Sal and other people very close in losing their whole retirement. Tello Duarte was one of them. He was
Tello?
after Tello Duarte real
Yeah.
bad. Yeah. So even after he worked in the post office for many years, he still ended up by being mistreated because of one individual. Not because of what the organization is supposed to be, because they allow somebody to do their own thing and don't. And unfortunately, the postmaster was even Mexican. You think that he would have looked after that, but he didn't.
so it was very, very difficult
To work, yes.
to work there for all the Mexicans that were there,
there's
Mexican Americans
only-
that were there.
Well, I wouldn't say all of them, because you know, in 33 years, the young and coming kids, you know, they had college education, they had so they were more savvy, but the older guys like us, you know, we're set in our ways, you know, because we came from the Depression, you know, we came from nothing to this, and that was an accomplishment. To me, it was an accomplishment.
It
You
was.
know, that I had a job, I had, I could save money, I bought a house, you know, I had to pay for 30 years, but I finally, so I was pretty lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I was luckier than my father. I think he was working for the WPA in 1937 for 44 cents an hour. No overtime, no health, just 45 cents an hour.
Well, you were a trailblazer. You know, you were a trailblazer, a pioneer in working in jobs that were not open to us back then, ¿verdad?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was. Francis, you said that you worked also. Tell us about your...
Yes, I worked as a beautician for 36 years. My first job, it was in San Bernardino, and being mistreated was by one of my own. The lady that hired me, her sister, unfortunately, committed suicide, so she didn't show up for work. The lady that was working there had me do all work, which I was there for. But she was crediting herself. We were paid 50% of what we made. So she was putting all the work on her column. So I want you to know that I ended up that week she dared pay me $4.50. And I told her, as a beautician, you know that that's not correct. She couldn't have possibly done all that work without me helping her or doing part of the work. She said, well, I said, so you can keep the $4.25. I said, I can go work as a laborer anywhere and make more money than that. Eventually, she mailed a check to me. She said, give me a chance, I'll be all right. Okay. I left. Then I came to the arcade. I worked for Gladys Marie Altmeyer. And she hired me. But one of the ladies that worked there with her, that was also a beautician, asked her, how dare you lower the shop by hiring a Mexican?
what year was that, Francis?
That was in 45.
Okay.
And she says, the sad part of it, that she had been married to a Mexican. So that's why she was bitter towards it. And then from there, I worked for that lady for 9 years. Went to Riverside because the business was slow. And then came back to Colton again. Totally, I worked as a beautician for 36 years. I worked for Francis Donnelly as well. I had beautiful experience. It helped me grow because I saw totally the other side of the world. Although my parents took us out to a lot of places. I had more opportunities. In fact, we would travel. We'd go to Los Angeles. We would have a lot of eat out in restaurants and so forth. But I worked there for 36 years. Had a lot of beautiful friends. I still have some of those ladies that I originally started working with that are my friends. And I was able to help my brothers because we were a large family. Your kids, my kids, and our kids. So there was a total of 12 of us. And by working, I was able to help some, being second to the oldest in the family. And also, we ended up buying a house within a block from the shop. Afterwards moved on Rancho and C. There was a little shopping center there, grocery store, liquor store, and the beauty shop. So I ended up buying in that area. Also, by being there, I met this lady who her husband had property on Grant between C and Olive. So they were saying...
This is in North Colton? This is in North
Oh,
Colton?
North Colton, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Everything in North Colton.
Okay.
In the time being, when I was 21, I had bought a house in South Colton that I was renting out. But I wanted to live in this area, in North Colton. So that's when I went to this lady that her husband owned this land, inquiring about a lot, because we wanted our dream. We didn't have any money, but we were dreaming of building a house. And as we went up, the lady answered the door and introduced my husband. And I said that we were interested in buying one of the lots. We wondered how much they were. And she got real nervous. I said, oh, did I come at a bad time? I said, we can come later. No, she says, all right, come in. But I could see the uneasiness on her. So she goes to the phone to call her husband, who at that time, we had a judge in Colton. I've been trying to, but I can't remember his name. I remember the lady that worked for Mrs. Carter. And she says to her husband, honey, here is that little young Mexican girl that does my hair. You know the little Mexican girl that does my hair? It clicked on right away, Mexican. Oh, you know where you're going. She said, he would like to speak to you. I said, okay. He said, I understand you're interested in one of my lots. He said, but I'm sorry, I can't sell it. I said, you can't sell it? You don't know whether I can afford it or not. Why can't you sell it? Well, I think it would be best if you would buy in South Colton. I think you'd be much happier. I said, I don't think you need to worry about my happiness. I said, he says, well, I think it would be best. And so he says, you understand, I have to think that I cannot depreciate my land. If I sell to you, it will depreciate. I said, what? I said, you're a judge, judging people with an attitude like that? I think you're in the wrong profession. I said, just for that, I will make a point to never live in South Colton, just to prove to you that I don't have to. My husband fought for this country, and we have every right that you have, and maybe even more, because he fought for it. So we left there. Of course, he was upset. I was upset too. And later on, we bought this house where we live at 805 Valencia Drive. But then too, Mr. Grooms didn't know whether to sell it, because on that street there was no Mexicans. And he was afraid that the neighbors would object. We had this friend of ours who was a real estate man, Mr. Hinman, who through him, some of my brothers had brought property already. And he convinced Mr. Grooms and Mrs. Grooms to sell to us because he was qualified, my husband was qualified to get a loan through the state because of being a veteran, having an honorable discharge. And they would get paid in full. He says, but I want payments so that I can have an income. And Mr. Hinman said to him, if you take this full amount, which the house was over $10,000, and he said, you can invest it all at one time and you'd be money ahead. Finally, he agreed to it. And so we didn't have the money. The state wanted $3,000. So my parents lended the $3,000 for the down payment. And we never spent, other than buying groceries and paying the utilities. Never bought anything extra until we paid my parents off, because that's the kind of man my husband is. Right or wrong, it's only right. So that's how we ended up there. But then up the street, I used to do this lady's hair. And she informed me, us here on Valencia choose our friends. We don't just go having coffee with anybody. And I told her, Miss Shaw, I'm glad to understand that, because I can enjoy my coffee by myself. Fine. I also choose my friends. Believe me, I was taught that very young. Be careful who your friends are or who you call a friend. But I said, as far as I'm concerned, we all live on Mortgage Lane, or is your house paid for? She said, no, we're paying on it. So time went on, and they were going to have a family picture taken. She had to come knocking at my door and ask me a favor. The shop where I worked was closed for a month. My boss had gone back to Indiana. They drove. So she says, Francis, we are having a family portrait taken of the family, and I want my mother's hair done. And she refuses to go to anybody but you. Would you be so kind as come to my house and do her hair for this picture? I said, I'll be more than delighted. She's my friend. I like her. She's very kind to me. So I did it. So you see, it doesn't pay to throw stones, because sooner or later it comes back to you, you know. And so then across the street from us, some homes were built. My brother had built a house there too. And then Gil Garcia, you know, bought farther down the street. Those were the three Mexicans and my brother, Gil, and us. And the house directly across the street was built and stood idle for a long time. And this colored couple bought it. And they made the bad mistake. You know, like every couple, we're excited, we want to get into our home. The yard was full of grass, weeds, and they came real quickly and went to the city hall to open the water and electricity, because they wanted us, the house was dusty, never been lived in, and we're pulling weeds and so forth. And the neighbors down the street had the nerve to call me and ask me, would you sign a petition? I said, for what? I don't put my name on just anything. I said, what is a petition? He says, it's about those people that bought across from you. You know, they're colored people. I said, so? He says, well, we don't want them in the neighborhood. Someone from the city hall called this person on Valencia to let him know. I said, why, is that what you were writing, getting a petition for us too? I said, if they have the money, they have the right to own it, so I wouldn't sign anything. But you know what? They never moved in, so somehow they got him out.
Well, tell us about the Cervantes situation also, Ralph Cervantes.
Oh, Ralph Cervantes, well, he was first to buy property in North Colton.
He was also a World War II veteran.
World War II veteran, yes. And he was buying next to Arm.
Yeah.
The Armand, next to the Armand, and the Armand didn't want them there. And so they fought it. They went to the court in the little city there in Colton, and they hired lawyers, and Cervantes were forced to fight a lawyer. And he said, well, we don't mind her. We don't mind him living there because he's a veteran, but she's from Mexico. But she was a graduate from the University of Mexico. She was no dummy. She had more education than a lot of us. And there was a discussion in the city hall about it, and they met several times. And they got an interpreter because, of course, Mrs. Cervantes just spoke Spanish. And the lawyer turns around and tells the interpreter, I'm sorry, I can't interpret word by word. She's using words that I've never heard and not familiar with because she was so well educated. So they finally let it be, but they had a struggle. Ours was not as bad as theirs, of course.
Did they get the house after?
They got the house, yes. And the Armand, I understand, by Mrs. Cervantes told me, later on he apologized to them, you know. But he put them through all that unnecessary experience, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the same thing even in high school. When my brother one of them was going to school. Well, we had several, but this particular one was going. So they called us in. Well, my mother didn't speak English and didn't understand it either, so I went with my dad, with my stepfather. Mr. McIntosh wanted to inform my father that my brother was dating, they thought she was just a friend, a white girl. And my father said, or stepfather said, has he been rude? Has he been, what is it? He said, but don't you see she's white? And I said, yes, but look at my son. He's light. So if they attract to each other, plus they're in school, they're not getting married. Well, I thought you would like to know. I don't think you need to inform me. My brother dated many girls after that, but it was the idea. He is not good enough for this girl, obviously. You know, I don't know.
And Sal was talking about attitude that hurt him. I think that was the general attitude of the high school and the people that work at the high school, that this was not going to happen.
Yes, that's right. And we made sure that for our daughters, they had every right anybody had in this world, as long as they led a straight life. Fortunately, but you know what? We only had our girls in public school for kindergarten. And then they went to Catholic school. When the school closed, the oldest girl went to St. Bernardine's and graduated from Aquinas and graduated for the University of Santa Clara, all through Catholic school. Our second daughter went to kindergarten, by Connie. She's a little Japanese teacher, lovely lady that taught her. But anyway, she went into Catholic school up to the 6th grade, I believe. 7th and 8th, she went to Holy Rosary, then to Aquinas, and attended UCLA. She didn't graduate, but she attended UCLA. And so we tried to expose them to a different way of, they had piano lessons, they had ballet dances, all registered in the library, played sports, totally to a different, we discussed politics with them if we're in the mood, or literature or so forth. So we wanted them to have opportunities that we didn't have.
Are they married now?
Both married to brothers. Our oldest daughter has 2 children. Her girl, a graduate from Long Beach State. Her boy is in the film business. Our youngest daughter has 5 children. The oldest one is working on his PhD. The second one has her master. She's a baseball coach. The next one is a music major, graduate from Fullerton. The next one graduated from Berkeley. The next one is going to Monsac College. So they're all
Congratulations.
hopefully doing better.
Congratulations.
And we feel that every time we see the name of a Mexican American graduating from high school or college, of course, we feel, thank God, a little bit of our efforts and hardships is going up. It's getting
we're very
better.
proud. We're very proud of you guys.
I was going to mention, in making a shift a little bit, Sal, were you a rock thrower at the bureaucracy? Were you an activist? Did you promote social justice in the community of Colton? I would imagine you did. You did. You got people involved in politics. You helped people run for office.
You were involved in social justice.
Huh?
Were you involved in social justice?
Yes. Yes, but I was in the background because I couldn't speak, and mostly speaking, but I was in the background. I always help.
You help candidates get elected to office? Did you help people get into office? Do you help
Oh,
them
yeah,
run for
we
office?
help Ruben Ayala from, Chino.
Chino.
Uh-huh.
We helped him, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the
And,
Board of Supervisors
Yes.
for San Bernardino County.
That's when he was elected.
And you helped him?
We had tea parties, we had meetings at our home,
Okay.
people over to the house. And
Yeah.
some of the city employees that worked out in the council, we had some of them at our home too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What about any of the, like Pete Lukey or Pascual Oliva or Abe Beltran? Any of those folks ever ask you for help?
No, I don't know. Did Pete Lukey or Oliva or...
The one that I got involved was the first councilman from Johnny Martinez.
Yes.
Johnny Martinez.
Yeah,
He was
41,
the first one.
1941, 42, yeah.
Yeah, he was, yeah, we got involved.
Yeah. Francis and Sal, how about school issues? School issues like some of the things that were happening in the school district. Did you get involved with Sunny Avril and?
I didn't, but he got involved in some of the things that were going.
At the beginning, in the 60s, when they started, yeah, we got involved. Yeah,
I stayed home with my kids.
Mhm.
I remember a remark made about, it came out in the paper, why was he, couldn't understand his opinion towards us, the city, or towards the school system, when we didn't have our kids in Catholic school. We didn't have our kids in public school.
Right.
But nevertheless, we were paying taxes, so we had interest because our money was being spent. Because we were not fly-by-night, we'd been here to stay, So he had every right to express, and through his experience, wanted justice for all the kids.
No, I do remember him being very active and trying to work with issues that affected our kids in the public school. Yeah.
What was that program that you worked on with Dr. Sterling and Francis?
Oh, yes, in the Lyndon Johnson administration,
Mhm.
when those programs, the federal programs first came over, you had to have a program. So they went to Colton, said, you gotta have a program to get these federal funds. And we didn't have any, well, what do we try to? So I knew Dr. Sterling, he was an MD, that I don't know how I got that, but the lady Francis, her name was Francis, at Social Services in San Bernardino. I went to talk to her and says, we can qualify for federal programs. As I introduced myself, of course. I live in South Colton, I was born in South Colton, and I'm interested in the people of South Colton. And we want federal programs for our kids, our programs, but we don't have anybody to help us. And so she's the one, Frances, I forget her last name, but she was there for a long time, social services lady, single lady, very nice professional lady. So she called, she was a friend of Dr. Sterling. So they said, okay, we'll help you. So Dr. Sterling, after his work at night, Miss Frances used to go to the South Colton, to the Caldera building on 7th Street, and they started the program. They started writing the program. That thing, when they finished, it was about this thick. I think they spent 3 months, 5 days a week at night. Sometimes we go up to 10 o'clock at night. And I don't know, but we were very lucky that we did. So they did the program. They didn't want any, it says, we don't want our names in anything. You're the ones that are going to present it. They presented it, and they passed it, and they got their funds. Up to now, I think this is the first time that we tell you
We
that
discussed it.
that's what happened.
Well, I know that both of you were, well, Sal was very active in just issues that affected Colton, so I know that he was very involved with those things. Yeah. Francis and Sal, have we covered everything about the positive things that you've done in your life? I know I didn't mention something like when you were young and growing up, what did you guys do for entertainment?
For entertainment.
Yeah. ¿Qué
What
hacían?
did you do for entertainment?
Well, the only time I games that we used to play,
Mhm.
marbles, and,
Canicas, canicas.
canicas,
Yeah.
and you know, where you get that ring, and then you have wire, stiff wire, and tires, old tires that you used to get in there and go to the hills and go down the. We made our own games.
Uh-huh.
You know, the kites, we used to make the kites, you know, paper and everything. Yeah. There was no money. I mean, at least in our house.
Right.
There was no money.
So you made your own games?
Yeah.
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 Llantas, old tires? Old tires?
Yeah, you used the old tire. You
Oh,
used-
yeah. Remember they used to go in there and they used to roll it. With somebody used to roll it, and then you go like this.
Yeah. How about resorteras, slingshots?
He still has one.
He does.
We cut the woods, you know, like this. Put the rubber, you know, use that inner tube, used to cut them. And the leather, you know, and kill the birds. You know, I'm ashamed to say, remember there was a lot of horny toads down in South Colton. I killed a lot of those horny toads and the lizards. you
They're
know.
in the Santa Ana River? The Santa Ana River?
We went to the river, yeah.
But where did you kill the horny toads?
Huh?
The horny toads.
Well, you go to the backyard, you know, by the railroad tracks. There was a little stream like that during the winter time,
Uh-huh.
and they used to come out
And
by the winter time, and we used to kill them.
Yeah. Sal, what about swimming? Swimming, did you guys go to the Santa Ana, los
know-
coninos?
I'm
Los coninos?
a non-swimmer,
Uh-huh.
and I joined
the
the
Navy.
Navy. And I'll tell you a story about that. During the Second World War, I said, I want to join the Navy, but I can't swim. And I read in the paper that a British warship got sunk by the Germans, and the only survivor out of those 5,000 crewmen was a non-swimmer. And you know how he did it? He found a piece of lumber, and he clung to it. Well, the people that used to swim, I guess they were very confident, but they were there for 1 or 2 days, and they finally got tired and drowned. That guy, non-swimmer, he clung to that piece of wood, and he survived.
So he was your hero.
Yeah, he was a
He
hero.
was your hero.
So he was your hero.
All I wanted to do was find a piece of wood.
Mr. Caballeros, do you have any questions for our?
Just a follow-up question on the programs that were brought in through that grant, that proposal that was written. What kind of programs were brought in? Do you remember? What kind of programs, what kind of educational programs were brought in through that proposal that you helped to
What kind
submit?
of educational programs were brought into the education when you and Ms. Dr. Sterling worked on? What kind of programs were brought in the education? They were done for the school system, and Colton used that. That's where they came with.
But I'm wondering what they used the money for.
Oh, do you know what they used the money for?
I really can't remember. I can't remember what they used it for. But they got money from the federal government because
After the
because of that
form
program.
after it was built, he just got left, you know. You know also who was involved in that was Beatrice. Was she involved in that? Beatrice.
Oh, B.
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 She took over afterwards. See, after all this was
Oh,
done, they
yes.
pushed him out again, like in the American
Yeah.
Legion.
Oh, B was involved with those activities.
But
Yeah.
she came in after it was all done.
Mm-hmm.
She was a big cheese after that.
Yes, I remember her. I remember educational programs.
Yeah, well, we can follow up with her,
tutoring.
ask, yeah,
Okay.
tutoring, bilingual programs maybe. I'm
Yeah,
wondering
yeah.
if part of it was bilingual education. That was about the beginning, those were the years when bilingual education, some people were experimenting with it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Which I don't believe in.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you have a picture that you brought, Sal, a picture of your mom and dad there. That I can't see it. Cesar, what is it?
So that was the when they
Can
got
you put it to the camera so they can hear?
when they got their citizenship
No.
paper.
Échale para allá. Espérate. Okay, can you focus on the picture? Okay. Tell us about the picture, Sal. Tell us about the picture.
When they were going to get their citizenship papers. That's 50 years after my dad came to the United States. Francis took him to the Superior Court, to the auditorium. And
No, I fill out their form because neither of them had immigration papers. They didn't need it at the time. So I fill out the forms for them to stable immigration. And then they went to, I think it was Wilson or Garfield, to classes. And then that picture I took just in front of her house that day they were going to take their oath, you know.
Oh, good. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And what, Francis? What year was this? Do you remember? What
Was-
year?
What year? That was in 1951.
1951.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, Francis and Sal, did I miss anything that you want to mention to our session today? Did I miss anything? We talked about where your parents came from. We talked about being in the military service and developing an attitude that I paid my dues. We talked about getting a job at the post office. We talked about your family, your girls. We talked about, let's see, you getting your house, a huevo. They didn't want it, but you getting your house. And then, kind of the wonderful experience that you've had, not only living in a segregated community, but also being able to move to the north side of Colton and kind of just be there for how many years now?
We've lived in that home for 60 years.
60 years now?
Yeah, we moved there on our third wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
So we've been married 63 years, so we
Ooh,
moved there on our
congratulations.
third.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So did I miss anything?
No,
well, there's one comment that I want to make. When you asked us the other day if we would come here, I thought of what I would say. Said, well, I'll leave it up to God. But there's one thing that I want to bring up. I thought to myself, my talk will be a whole 90% of my parents. That's what they gave me by coming to the United States. I can't be more appreciative that they did that because they gave us an opportunity. Even though that was hard, yes. But it makes them for our kids to have it easier. For my daughter to graduate from Santa Clara. For my youngest daughter to be right now in Seattle, talking with the heads of Bainbridge Jewelers, who got over 70 jewelry shops in the United States. And chances are that from now on she's going to go up because she's been working there 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, according to the employees there, that the one from Brea, I don't think that they've ever done anybody Mexican American to be invited to talk to them, to the Bainbridge family. So we feel very proud. That pride Colton, the spirit of Colton, especially South Colton. I'm very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you.
I want to tell you about,
okay.
I think that I agree with Sal about our parents because we owe them a great deal. I told my daughter when she went away to the university. I said, Mija, on your shoulders goes a lot of responsibility. I said, my mother and my father left their homeland. My mother never to see her mother again, so we could have a better country, a better world life. When my father died, my mother could have gone back, but because of her children to have a better opportunity, they stayed. When my little brother was found dead, it was on the 2nd of November. I don't remember what election, but in her confusion of the loss of finding her son dead, she would say, did you go vote? That's a desire I've always wanted, and I'm not able to do. Did you go vote? And I thought to myself, she loves this country so that she's concerned about us exercising our right to vote, even if her heart is broken. She just found her son dead a few minutes ago. And so for that, I think we owe our parents a great deal for their sacrifices. And we have a great responsibility also to live a clean life and to try to be an example for our children. It's very difficult sometimes, but you have to hang on, And thank you.
Well, thank both of you. We certainly thank you very, very sincerely for being with us today. And I think I would echo that from you.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate
welcome.
your comments.
Yeah.
We're glad to have that documented and for future generations.
Mhm. Well, again, thank you, And we'll just keep in touch.
Yes.
If anything comes up, we'll do it again. Thank you.
I'll tell you something. Personally, when I remember you as a
Oh, film this.
as a high
Yeah.
school student, as a college student, and I said, this guy is gonna make it. He's gonna make it. I thought, he's gonna make it. We used to go to the Van Akens when you used to have
Oh,
that.
that's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
Very-
right.
very,
Remember
very
that, Lily?
energetic.
The Van scholarship that we started, that was back in 65,
Van Aken.
66, 67.
Who was Van Aken?
Van was one of the families, Colton families, that lived in South Colton. They lived on Congress, on Congress Street.
That's where I remember you from.
Yeah.
You and, I don't know, were you there too? I know there was a young lady with him.
Ooh, don't
That was
say
you.
it. The Francis-
And you were working on, we went to a fundraiser for college, I think you
Yes,
created.
yes.
Yeah, that's.
We created a scholarship.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Van was kind of our padrinos, the Van he was from
Canada, I think.
someplace, but and then she was a Native American, and they had sons and daughters. One daughter, Mary married Garcia, the pilot that you were talking about, and anyway, they were people that helped us create a baseball team. They would sponsor the baseball team. They would take us to the beach. And, do all kinds of things for us when we were growing
Very
up
generous
in South
people.
Colton. Yeah.
Very
What was
generous.
the name of the baseball team?
The baseball team, our baseball
Was that the beginning of
team-
the Mercury?
No, the Mercury started in 1939. In 1939, the Colton Mercury started.
It was a previous team.
And then, where the N Street and 8th Street, La Cadena?
Uh-huh.
That's where they played their first games in that empty lot there.
Uh-huh.
That's where they played their.
Do you remember the name of the team?
Of the what?
Of the team that you're talking about?
Oh, our team was just kind of a pickup, kind of a neighborhood kids.
Okay.
We were from Las Palomas. We
Okay.
didn't talk about the barrios.
No,
Las
we-
Palomas,
yeah.
yeah. We didn't talk about the barrios.
That's for another time.
We may have to do another session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ernie Garcia
we'll do
has a good
Yeah.
handle on the barrios.
We'll do another session, talk about the barrios and some of the other things.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's what they would say. We were at a gathering one time, and they kept saying about the Camino Beach.
Cunino Beach.
Camino Beach, and
Cunino Beach.
I had traveled through my parents and us have traveled through the coast, and I thought, I've never been to that beach, and there was talking and talking. Finally, I said, where's that beach? I've never been to it. And Sal said, no, you haven't been. And then the other lady said, we can tell you're not a native. I said, I still didn't know what they were talking about.
You know, it's the Santa Ana River.
Oh,
The Santa Ana River, so it crossed, the Riverside Freeway came through Colton, through La Cadena. And then over the bridge, you know, they had a bridge that would, the Santa Ana River would go under. And then next to on the west side of the bridge was a little area.
that was Conino Beach.
That was Cunino Beach.
And of course, I hadn't been there.
Right, on the side of the river.
And I couldn't figure where was it.
A lot of
know-
us remember Conino Beach in our youth, the side of the river. Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah, you know, I feel bad about Colton, as though I'll tell you the truth, I didn't like Colton. When I lived in Fontana, and we'd go, my parents would come shopping to San Bernardino, and I always tell my dad, don't go through Colton. By the time we went there, everything was closed on Saturday. It looked so depressed, you know, it was quiet, and all I remember, there was a big pair of coveralls hanging on the store of Willits, and they would swing. I liked it when we got there early because they had a dime store. They had real nice material to embroider, and I could get a lot of things there. And I was the only girl, so my dad I was spoiled, really. Could get all those things I needed, and my mother said, okay, it keeps her busy. So, but as I've lived here, you know, now we're going to even be buried here, I've noticed that there's a lot of history. And I'm not a writer by no means, but I think we've lost a great deal because there was the Padillas, you know, that had a lot of history, that knew a lot of history, and then the Guerreros are related to all sorts of people. A lot of those older people have died that had a lot of information.
That's why I'm delighted that Cesar started the project. You know, out of the blues, he said, why don't we do a project on South Colton? And we just started to do the project. This is why we're trying very, very hard to get as many people as we can to come through the interviews, because we get that information that, you know, I know we missed a lot of it, but it's still better late than never, como dice el dicho. But we'll try and see what we can pull up with this little project that we have going.
Well, we can find some relatives of the Padillas and the Guerreros that might remember some of the
They might
oral
remember
history.
some of it, yes.
And maybe they can recount it.
But see, like I remember Mrs. Davis that worked in the city hall for many
Yes,
years,
yes,
the
yes,
city
yes.
clerk. She says she used to live in South Colton at one time, and she would come when there weren't that many Mexicans, I guess, living there, and she would walk down to the city hall to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to say, that gentleman that wouldn't sell us that lot, he's probably turning in his grave. The man, that house that he owned, the son of one of my godchild is living in it. They're mostly all Mexican. Our street, there's just practically all are Mexican. But we move in and they move out. I don't know where they're going to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yucaipa. It's a good project, and on Thursday, this coming Thursday, at 1:30, we're gonna tape Abe Beltran.
Oh, uh-huh.
We're gonna tape Abe Beltran, and you know, he was the second Mexican mayor in Colton.
Yes.
Pascual Oliva was the first one, and then Abe was the second one. And I want him to talk about Pete Lukey and Johnny Martinez and let's see, Pascual Oliva. And I want him to talk about those experiences that he was born and raised in Colton too.
And his family before that was
Yeah.
also from Margarita.
Yes.
His mother, yeah.
Yeah. So those are our plans. And you're kind of you were talking about your mom and dad being pioneers and coming here to this country. You guys are pioneers because you helped us start this project. Los pioneros. Yeah.
Well,
Bueno.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
you're welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It was so interesting. I decided to stay for the whole thing. I'll catch up on my work later. This is more interesting.
Mañana es otro día.
We'll get it tonight. This is very interesting to us. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome, sir.